The Philippines, a nation scattered across the sea and thousands of islands, has a history as deep and mysterious as the ocean trenches that surround it. Long before the arrival of galleons and conquistadors, these islands were alive with activity. Ancient humans walked these lands. They were followed by waves of people, each bringing their own skills and traditions. These were the ancestors of the many indigenous groups that still thrive in the Philippines today. Austronesian sailors arrived in their outrigger canoes. They brought with them the knowledge of rice cultivation, the art of weaving, and a deep connection to the spirits of the land and sea. Through trade and migration, these early Filipinos built connections with other parts of Asia. They traded with the empires of China and India, adding to the rich blend of cultures that would shape the islands. In the southern islands, a new faith arrived on the monsoon winds. Islam, brought by traders and missionaries from the Malay archipelago, began to take root. The sultanates of Sulu and Maguindanao rose to prominence, marking the arrival of a new cultural and religious force in the archipelago. These Islamic sultanates, with their intricate art, fierce warriors and sophisticated governance, would leave an indelible mark on the Philippine story. The pre-colonial Philippines was not a single unified state. Instead, it was a complex tapestry of independent villages, powerful chiefdoms, and emerging sultanates. These early Filipinos built connections with other parts of Asia. The arrival of Ferdinand Magellan in 1521 marked a turning point in Philippine history. Magellan, a Portuguese explorer sailing for the Spanish crown, was searching for a westward route to the Spice Islands. He landed on Humabon Island and later made contact with Rajah Humabon of Cebu. Magellan's expedition, though ultimately ending in his death at the Battle of Mactan, opened the door for a new era of Spanish exploration and conquest. Spain, eager for wealth and glory, saw the potential of these islands. In 1565, Miguel Lopez de Legaspi, a Spanish conquistador, arrived in Cebu and established the first permanent Spanish settlement. The Spanish, armed with superior weaponry and driven by a desire for gold and converts, began to assert their dominance over the archipelago. They named the islands Las Islas Filipinas, in honor of King Philip II of Spain. The Spanish conquest was not a swift or easy affair. Many Filipino groups resisted fiercely. Lapu-Lapu, the chieftain of Mactan, became a national hero for his victory over Magellan. The Spanish faced numerous uprisings from various indigenous groups who refused to relinquish their freedom. However, over time, the Spanish, through a combination of military might, political maneuvering, and religious conversion, established control over most of the archipelago. The introduction of Christianity was a profound change. The Spanish colonial period, spanning over 3 centuries, brought about significant transformations in Philippine society. The Spanish established a centralized government, with Manila as the capital. The traditional power structures of datus and rajas were gradually replaced by a colonial administration headed by a Spanish governor-general. This new system, though often corrupt and exploitative, imposed a degree of order and unity on the fragmented archipelago. One of the most significant changes was the introduction of the encomienda system. Under this system, Spanish conquistadors and officials were granted large tracts of land, along with the labor of the people who lived there. In reality, the system often led to abuse, exploitation, and forced labor. The Spanish also implemented a system of forced labor, requiring Filipinos to work on various projects, such as building churches, roads, and fortifications. This system, known as Polo y Servicios, placed a heavy burden on the indigenous population. Many Filipinos were forced to leave their homes and families to work on these projects, often under harsh conditions. Despite the hardships, Filipino culture continued to thrive and adapt. The Spanish colonial period, though marked by oppression and resistance, laid the foundation for a new Philippine society. The Catholic Church played a central role in Spanish colonial life. Churches, often grand and imposing structures, rose in towns and cities across the archipelago. Filipinos embraced Catholicism with fervor, finding solace and strength in their new faith. Religious festivals, processions, and rituals became an integral part of Filipino life, providing a sense of community and continuity amidst the challenges of colonial rule. The Spanish colonial economy was largely based on the galleon trade. Manila became a vital hub in this trade route, connecting Acapulco in Mexico to the rest of the Spanish Empire. Galleons, massive ships laden with treasures, sailed across the Pacific, bringing silk, porcelain and spices from Asia to the Americas. In return, silver from the mines of Mexico and Peru flowed back to Manila. The galleon trade brought wealth to Manila, transforming it into a bustling cosmopolitan city. However, this prosperity was largely concentrated in the hands of the Spanish elite and a small Filipino upper class. The majority of Filipinos, particularly those living in rural areas, saw little benefit from the galleon trade. The galleon trade also had a profound impact on Filipino art and culture. Section 5. Echoes of Revolt, Seeds of a Nation. The Spanish colonial period was not without its share of uprisings and rebellions. Filipinos, despite being disarmed and often divided, never fully accepted Spanish rule. Throughout the centuries, revolts flared up across the archipelago, fueled by a desire for freedom, resistance to forced labor and excessive taxation, and the defense of traditional beliefs and ways of life. One of the earliest and most significant revolts was the Tondo Conspiracy of 1587. Led by Lacandula and Suleiman, this revolt sought to overthrow the Spanish and restore the old order. Though ultimately unsuccessful, it highlighted the simmering discontent among the Filipino elite. Similar uprisings, often led by local chiefs and datus, erupted throughout the archipelago, demonstrating the enduring spirit of resistance. The 17th century saw a series of revolts sparked by religious reasons. The Tamblut uprising in Bohol and the Bangka revolt in Leyte, both from 1621 to 1622, were fueled by a desire to return to traditional animistic beliefs. These revolts, though brutally suppressed by the Spanish, highlighted the importance of religion and spirituality in Filipino society. Section 6. Stars and Stripes over the Archipelago. The late 19th century witnessed the decline of Spanish power and the rise of new imperial ambitions. The United States, fresh from its victory in the Spanish-American War, turned its attention towards the Philippines. The Treaty of Paris in 1898 officially ended the Spanish colonial era, transferring control of the archipelago to the United States. The Filipinos, initially hopeful that the Americans would grant them independence, were soon disillusioned. The Philippine-American War, from 1899 to 1902, erupted, marking a bloody and brutal chapter in both nations' histories. Emilio Aguinaldo, who had declared Philippine independence from Spain in 1898, led the Filipino forces against the American troops. The war was marked by atrocities on both sides. The Filipinos, fighting for their homeland, faced a technologically superior enemy. The Americans, initially welcomed as liberators, resorted to brutal tactics in an attempt to quell the resistance. Despite their valiant efforts, the Filipino forces were eventually defeated. Section 7. A Time of Trial, War and Occupation. The American colonial period brought about significant changes in the Philippines. The Americans, promoting a policy of benevolent assimilation, implemented reforms in education, healthcare, and infrastructure. They established a public school system, built hospitals and roads, and introduced modern agricultural techniques. However, these reforms often came at the cost of Filipino culture and autonomy. English was introduced as the language of instruction in schools, aiming to create a generation of Filipinos who could participate in the American colonial administration. This policy, while promoting literacy and access to Western knowledge, also led to the decline of Spanish and indigenous languages. The Americans also encouraged Filipinos to adopt American customs and values, further eroding traditional Filipino culture. The Philippines, granted Commonwealth status in 1935, was on the path towards independence when World War II erupted. The Japanese invasion in 1941 plunged the archipelago into another period of brutal occupation. Despite the hardships, Filipinos resisted the Japanese occupation, forming guerrilla units and aiding American forces. Section 8. The Birth of a Republic. On July 4, 1946, the Philippines finally achieved its long-sought independence. The United States, fulfilling its promise of self-determination, granted the Philippines full independence, marking the birth of the Republic of the Philippines. This historic event was met with jubilation and hope, as Filipinos celebrated their newfound freedom and looked forward to a brighter future. The early years of independence were marked by both challenges and triumphs. The nation, still recovering from the devastation of World War II, faced the daunting task of rebuilding its economy, infrastructure, and institutions. Political instability, economic inequality, and the lingering effects of colonialism cast a long shadow over the young republic. Despite these challenges, Filipinos embraced their independence with determination and resilience. They rebuilt their cities, revitalized their economy, and established a democratic government. The Philippines, once a colony ruled by foreign powers, had taken its place on the world stage as a sovereign nation. The post-independence era also saw the rise of Filipino nationalism and a renewed appreciation for Filipino culture and identity. Section 9. People Power and a New Dawn. The latter half of the 20th century was a tumultuous period for the Philippines. Ferdinand Marcos, elected president in 1965, declared martial law in 1972, ushering in an era of authoritarian rule. Marcos, promising stability and progress, consolidated his power, silencing dissent, curtailing civil liberties, and enriching himself and his cronies. The Marcos regime, though initially popular for its infrastructure projects and economic programs, soon became synonymous with corruption, human rights abuses, and the suppression of dissent. The assassination of Benigno Ninoy Aquino Jr., a prominent opposition leader in 1983, sparked widespread outrage and galvanized the opposition against Marcos. In 1986, the People Power Revolution, a peaceful uprising of millions of Filipinos, toppled the Marcos regime and forced Marcos and his family into exile. Corazon Cory Aquino, Ninoy's widow, was sworn in as president, marking the restoration of democracy in the Philippines. Aquino's presidency, though facing numerous challenges, including coup attempts and economic instability, ushered in a new era of freedom and democratic governance. Section 10. The Philippines Today, a Nation Still Becoming. The Philippines today is a vibrant democracy grappling with the legacies of its past and the challenges of the present. The country has made significant strides in economic development, becoming one of the fastest-growing economies in Southeast Asia. However, poverty, inequality, and corruption remain persistent problems. The Philippines continues to face security challenges, including communist insurgency, Islamic extremism in the southern Philippines, and territorial disputes in the South China Sea. Natural disasters such as typhoons and earthquakes also pose a constant threat, testing the nation's resilience and its ability to respond to crises. Despite these challenges, the Philippines remains a nation full of hope and potential. Its people, known for their warmth, hospitality, and resilience, continue to strive for a better future. The story of the Philippines is a testament to the enduring human spirit, a story of resilience in the face of adversity, of hope amidst challenges, and of the unwavering belief in the power of freedom and democracy.